Okay, well, we'll kick off because I think a couple of people might be late. We've got about 50 people booked for tonight, but you always get a few people that drop off. So hopefully we get a couple more. My name's Sean Palmer, and I'm pretty pleased tonight, or very pleased tonight, to be able to share the workshop with you on behalf of Happiness Co and via Sobriety Coaching. So, like I said to Josh, it's certainly not mandatory, but if you want to come off, chuck your camera on, please feel free. The more faces and friendly faces, the more engaging the session it'll be. I wanted to start tonight. I think a lot of people would have just finished work, or just had dinner, or dealt with the kids, or whatever you may have been doing. So I thought it might be a good opportunity just to help everyone relax, that we might do a quick session of breath work, which only will take about a minute or two. So you can do it off screen, but it's pretty simple. I like to do breath work just to help myself calm down after a day's work. When I was giving up alcohol, it certainly helped me to, I guess, de-stress, and also took away some cravings. So not sure if anyone's familiar with it, but if you've ever done a 4-7-8 technique, anyone done breath work of that nature? Inhale through your nose for 4, hold for 7, and out through your mouth for 8. Is anyone familiar with that? You can either throw it in the chat, or come off mic and let me know. Josh has done it. All right, so we'll just do a couple of those just to relax, chill out, get everyone focused, and help them relax before we kick off. And I'll then open up to some slides, and we'll start. So in for 4, hold for 7, out for 8. Let's go. One more. All right, so I don't know if anyone's done that. Josh, certainly I could see your face and you gave me the thumbs up. You said you've done it, but it's a really helpful practice or technique I like. I use it driving to places that I might need to focus or calm down from, especially if I've had an ordinary day at work, or I've had a confrontation with someone that's put me off my, I guess, normal way of feeling, and I just want to bring my nervous system back to the central path where it sort of sits normally, and calm down. It's a great practice, so I do recommend that. I do have a few slides, but tonight I want to be as engaging as possible and have chats. Like I said, if you want to come off camera when you want to talk, or come off mic or mute and ask questions, there's a bit of a format that we'll roll with through the night, but I'm more than willing to stop at any moment or any time you like when you've got a question, elaborate it on, or even get into a group discussion on some things, because tonight's not certainly all about me. I'd love as much engagement and input from you guys as well. So looking forward to that. Give me 2 seconds. I've just got to shut one door. Apologies about that. My little podcast door popped open. Can hear you guys a lot better now. So look, I'll start off by giving you a little snapshot of my story and how I got to this point and why I do what I do, and then we'll certainly dive into tonight's workshop on improving your relationship with alcohol. But I think it's really important that I give you, I guess, an understanding of my lived experience and why I'm so passionate about what I do. So I moved from Africa, Zimbabwe, specifically as a young 11-year-old to Australia. And when I immigrated over here, I arrived, and it was a pretty strange country, spoke differently. I had, obviously a much different accent to Aussies did. And I had quite a strong sort of accent that was similar to a South African's. A lot of people don't really know what Zimbabwean's accent is like, but it's quite similar to a South African's. I dressed differently, and I certainly arrived as a pretty anxious young kid trying to fit into Australian culture. So I was a pretty easy target in the playground for bullying, and got into a lot of scraps when I first arrived. But Equally, my father, on arrival, he found it very difficult to immigrate and integrate once he got here. And he was already a pretty big party drinker. He was a bit of a binge drinker, if you like, and he had probably, I won't say a problematic relationship with alcohol, but it was certainly heading that way. And soon on arrival into Australia, that, like I said, integration for him was extremely difficult, and his coping mechanism then became more alcohol. And the more alcohol he drank, then he started to get violent and exposed me to a fair amount of domestic violence, which then sort of, my anxiousness as a young kid, trying to fit into school, not really having a steady home life, and being able to I guess have that safe space at home outside of school, which I wasn't really enjoying. There wasn't many places, so I too then started to experiment with alcohol, which was really terrible for me at the time, because I sort of promised myself that I would never drink, because of what I saw happening to my father, and I saw what damage my father was doing to me and my family. So there was a lot of shame involved with me drinking alcohol, but nonetheless, I started using it as a coping mechanism to, I guess, a form of the ability to escape what was happening at home, take my mind off things, and just get lost in alcohol. So it was a absolute coping mechanism for me. But yeah, I think from that point, at a young age, started to make some wrong decisions, started to hang around the wrong people and be influenced by them, and schooling started to fall apart, and I certainly wasn't putting my best foot forward. I think, the people I was associating with were, similar people, quite hurt, experimenting with alcohol, came from broken households, etc. So, no disrespect to those people, but show me your friends and I'll show you your future. I wish I knew that back then, but it's so true. I guess I was resonating with people of similar nature because it felt comfortable and it was normalised. From then, I knew I needed to leave school because I wasn't enjoying it, so I went and joined the hospitality industry. Joined the hospitality industry as a pretty troubled young kid, but poorly educated, but not dumb. I was smart, street smart, but didn't have a great education behind me. So hospitality industry was an easy entry point, and I became an apprentice chef. Fantastic idea at the time. It took me out of the bad influences that I had going on in school, and gave me some money in my pocket, and away I was gone. But I didn't really know much about the hospitality industry at the time, other than I was passionate about food. It's probably one of the only real passions I had in life at the time. But as soon as I entered the hospitality industry, I soon found out that it was so centric around alcohol. Everything you did, including even sometimes at work, was around alcohol. Going out as a large group of, work colleagues, pretty much 7 days a week, if you wanted to. So I really got trapped up in that. I was already using alcohol as a coping mechanism, and then, a new career in hospitality. Again, I sort of found the people that were, I guess, reasonable sized drinkers, or had some similar habits to myself, so I could normalize it. And again, I sort of was just growing that habit of, I was never an everyday drinker. I throughout, I guess, my whole drinking career, if you want to say, I was sort of a binge drinker, but yeah, 2 to 3 days a week, I would drink quite heavily. Time moved on, and, I exited the hospitality industry and did a few things. I went to Europe, came back. I had a young family at a tender age of around, by the time I went 22, or my first child was on the way. So had 3 children by the age of 26, which pushed me to think that the hospitality industry wasn't paying the bills, and it made me think of something else, and that was the mines. So I thought, well, I can be a chef on the mines, earn a lot more money, and so off I went to the mines. And great decision again, similar to joining the hospitality industry. At first, it felt great. The salary was almost double what I was earning. Unfortunately, as a binge drinker, I isolated myself from my family, my only probably network, for 4 weeks at a time and 1 week off. So you can probably imagine what that was, isolated in a remote area, In those days, there were phone boxes. There was no mobile phones. You had to get a phone card. You had a maximum of 10 minutes to ring your family because there was a queue of people behind you that wanted to ring theirs. So it was, a bit of a courtesy system in place. So you can imagine all those pressures and being isolated. Again, my only comfort was to binge drink 2-3 days a week on the mines, and my thirst for alcohol certainly was increasing on the mines, because unfortunately it was 100% normalised out there. I was probably one of the mild drinkers in my mind, but most people drank very heavily in those days. And what I found was, 4 weeks away of a lot of binge drinking. It was very then hard to stop when I came back for that 1 week. And I found then not even relaxing and spending much time with my family when I came back, because I'd developed so many, I guess, poor habits and programmed in my body to drink very regularly. It wasn't going to let me stop when I came back. So that's the mind. So look, I'll cut my story short because it is a fairly lengthy one, but I was struggling, I guess, to control my binge drinking. It was certainly a merry-go-round. I had a lot of, times where I was thinking about quitting, but just was never able to do it, only for a short period of time, and it was always sort of affecting my health. And like I said, that merry-go-round continued until I got to a point where I really started to despise alcohol. And alcohol is such a strong substance, and I'll go into that later in the workshop. But it had such a grip on me that I despised it, hated it, but still couldn't stop doing it, which didn't make any sense to me at the time. It does now. I know what I know now, but so anyway, I kept drinking, started to really despise it, and then I got to a point where I'd been married twice, 5 children at this stage, and I was still functioning from the outside. A lot of people from the outside would have a look at me and say, he's functioning, he's funny, he's a party animal, likes a decent beer, but inside I was really hurt and broken. I wasn't doing very well at all. And then I guess it got to a point where I just needed one thing more, and that was going to tip me over the edge. And unfortunately, that was the passing of my oldest son, Kurt, at the age of 26. He gave up on his long-term struggle with mental health and left this world. He decided that it was enough for him at 26. And, that was a very tragic event, the most tragic event that I've ever had in my life. As you can imagine, already me having a very problematic relationship with alcohol, that caused me to escalate my drinking even further, if that was at all possible. But this was an absolute turning moment for me. So, it was such an important part of my life. It was the most tragic, but it was also, I guess, a wake-up call for me to actually stop what I was doing and make a change. And my lovely wife, Andrea, at the time said, you need to go get some help, which was, one of the best things that she's ever said to me. So away I went, and I engaged some coaching services to start with, and that really started the way, the path of where I am today. So I started to see a coach, and it was more of a spiritual coach. I didn't know at the time. I just went with an open mind, went to go and see them. And I'm not a spiritual person, so certainly not heavy religious. But she just worked on removing trauma, giving me different things like positive psychology, journaling, changing my mindset, and a whole other things that I'll go through in the but yeah, I started to take this path, and I guess the more interest I got in my own personal health and well-being, my mental and physical well-being, the better I started to feel, the changes I started to make in my nutrition, the changes I started to make in my sleep patterns. I was, really getting to a point where I was cutting back on my drinking and really thinking about becoming, sober. I was starting to get really sober curious. So it got to a point actually then when I made a decision that I didn't want to drink, and I wanted to further, I guess, the education around how I would go about that. So I thought none better to start a health and wellness professional accreditation, which I completed. And that really put me on sort of, caring more about myself and what I do to myself. And then out of that, I just got so much interest. I wanted to carry on that sobriety track. So I became a grey area drinking coach and got accredited in that as well. And that's where I specialise now. So, I help people improve their relationship through alcohol, which is, definitely the foundation of learning about people's health and well-being. It's a massive part of it, and it's all entwined. But I'm glad I did both, because it definitely gives me a good foundation and taught me a lot about my own personal things. So I guess that's one of the themes I want to revisit throughout tonight, is about, I guess, awareness. So my aim today is leave you with a lot of awareness. Awareness precedes choices, and then once you're aware of what choices are out and available to you, then you can actually make change. So, I think, to put it in my simple terms, if you're not aware of something, you won't know what choices are out there, and you're certainly then unlikely to make any changes in your interests or your behaviours or so forth. So, I'll finish up my story very shortly. I guess I just wanted to explain the one thing that nearly destroyed me and I could not stop doing for so long. As soon as I let that one thing go, it just opened up everything. My world was so small while I was drinking alcohol, but you only know what you know. So now I know what a sober life does. And for me, it's just given me an amazing opportunity, and the opportunities are absolutely endless. I also want to talk about, I guess, one of the biggest gifts for me, I guess, not only was, being sober, bring my health and all those sort of things back in line, but the biggest, I guess, showstopper for me was just my relationship with my family. Through childhood and all that trauma that I experienced, I told you earlier that I experienced, once I and made decisions and got sober and cleaned my life up, I found all that love and all the things that I was longing for that I missed out on as a child. And it was right in front of me once I removed all the fog. So I'll leave you at the end of my story to say that I've now been sober for 565 days. I still count them on an app, not religiously every day. I check the app every now and again because I'm just interested to see how the days tick over. And I've not looked back from day one. I've never been tempted to drink a drop of alcohol since I decided to give up 565 days ago, and it's the last thing that I would ever think of, to be honest. I want to share, I guess, a quote that I've stolen from quite a few people. Julian at the Happiness Co. Uses it quite regularly, but so where your focus goes, your energy flows and your results show. And I guess, using my story, I was really focused on alcohol. It was so centric to my life. That's where all my energy went, and my results showed that. My results were poor. I was poor in health, poor in relationships, and poor in life, basically. Never mind all the money and everything else I was spending. So once I changed my focus and where my energy flowed, my results certainly changed. And that short period of time, 565 days, my life has changed dramatically. All right, so I wanted to talk to you guys now about the actual workshop side of things, but before we kick off, there's a few people that may have not heard the start. Just, if you have a question, please jump off mic. If you want to share your camera, absolutely, please come on camera. The more smiley faces, the better. It's easy to chat to. So I'm just going to share my screen, and if Josh, if you can just give me a yell out once you see the slide pack come up, mate, that'd be great. Can you see the slide pack, Josh?
No, but I could be in the wrong screen. No, I can't. Can anyone else?
2 secs. I'll just bear with me. I'll just click it up. Here we go. Share. How about now, mate?
Yep, can see it now. Yep.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so I gave you my story for those that were there, and I guess just to finish off, I'll talk to you about my story. Everything I used to do was around alcohol, but the photo with my daughter with a drink of water in my hand was the proudest day of my life recently when I got married as a sober man, and I had 100 people at my wedding, and I was probably the only one that was sober, but still I had an amazing day, and it just proved to myself that I could have a wedding without alcohol, which I would have never thought of. I would have never even thought I could have gone to the races or anywhere without alcohol a while ago. And then the photo of me with my lovely wife Andrea in a tux is one of the also proudest days. I actually shared my story about, I guess, my recovery and my son's challenge with mental health in front of 1,200 people at the last year's Happiness Co Gala Ball. So pretty special days there. So has anyone heard of the grey area or grey area drinking as a term that's used? It's pretty new and probably only been around for sort of 5 years, but it's certainly gathering a bit more knowledge out there, and I guess it's becoming a lot more common. So the grey area drinking I wanted to explain to everyone tonight, I guess you've got, I use it as on a spectrum of 1 to 10. So, you've got your every now and again drinkers, which are sort of, they might at a birthday or a christening, they might grab a champagne, finish half, and they drink once a month, maybe a couple of times a year, and they sort of sit in that 1 to 3, and they're typically not people that are centric around alcohol, can drop it, have long periods without it, and it doesn't really feature in their life. And then you've got the grey area, which is around from about the 3 to 7, and that's where I operate as a coach, and it's probably where 80% of drinkers lie. And to make it clear, like beyond that point, between 7 and definitely 8, 9, and 10, that's when I guess some of your major disorders come in place, and a grey area coach like myself typically wouldn't look after those type of people because they would need professional rehab and medical treatment, etc. So yeah, we have this grey area that sits in the middle where most people drink, and I guess if you classify as a grey area drinker, you can stop drinking. All grey area drinkers have the ability to stop drinking for a period of time, whether it be a week, a month, but they continually go back to it, and they have, depending on where they're on, the lower the 3s and 4s might start to be developing a problem, but certainly the 5s, 6s and 7s within the grey area have a mild disorder with alcohol. And that could be because it's affecting their health, it's affecting their relationships, and again, most grey area drinkers, they appear very normal on the outside, but it's how it's making them feel on the inside. And I think one thing that's really important that I want to share with everyone today, it's not around volume. So it's not, you wouldn't say, okay, well, because I'm, they typically say if you drink over 12 standard drinks per week, and between 12 and 24, you have a mild disorder. And obviously it gets up into the red if you're drinking more than 24 sort of standard drinks per week. But I don't put a volume on it. I think it's more important to think about, no matter how much you drink, it's actually how much it makes you feel as an individual, because we've all got different tolerances, we've all got different bodies, genetic, I guess, dispositions, and different things that affect the way alcohol deals with our body. So I always look at it, it's how it makes you feel physically and mentally, and that's sort of what you need to work on, and you'll know with your relationship whether you need to do something about it. I wouldn't ever try and measure it on, well, I'm only at 7, so when I get to drink more than 12 per week, then I'll call it a problem. I don't think it's volume related. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yep.
Wonderful. All right. So where's alcohol, or where's your relationship with alcohol? This is one of the first things that I like to talk about with people in workshops, and definitely would recommend that you guys look at sort of this model on a regular basis. If you are a drinker, whether you're aiming to continue drinking, whether you're aiming to moderate, or you're actually, it's a great tool just to measure the certain things. It doesn't cover every aspect of life, but life, health, family, relationships, and career. That's certainly some of the real key boxes to tick. So I guess, life is alcohol, affecting your purpose and your belonging and journey in life. And for me, like legacy, what legacy was I leaving? Most people knew me as a party animal on the outside and a drunk, and my kids suffered. So the legacy that I was leaving for them was certainly not something that, I was proud of, and certainly something that I needed to address. Your health, I think a lot of people have health complications and they accept them as everyday life, and they're not really sure in some instances what's causing those. But alcohol is often one of the key causes for some of the physical and mental health things that we're going through. And we'll cover a lot more of this later, so I won't go into that in any depth at this stage. Obviously, family is massive, being present, being mindful, your mood swings, whether you're withdrawn because of alcohol or whether, a lot of people have, they're not sharing their problems related to alcohol, so they can have self-pity, self-shame, negative self-talk, which will definitely affect their family and their relationships, etc. So, and relationships, again, will fold into that. Are you investing in the wrong relationships because of alcohol? Again, if you feel comfortable binge drinking, or you're moving, you're not comfortable with, I guess, people that aren't binge drinkers or don't have a problematic relationship with alcohol, you just want to have a look at those relationships. Are they actually the best relationships for you? And I'm not saying all people that drink, you shouldn't hang around. That's absolutely not. And I'm not anti-alcohol. I guess, like, it's not the devil's juice, but I guess I want to talk tonight about facts and make people aware. And then career, lastly, I think, I put it last because I think life, health, family, relationships are more important than career for me and most people when they really look at it. But, alcohol can certainly keep your world small, stop you wanting to self-improve. If you're drinking to excess, that can definitely have reputational damage, as I sort of suffered in the past of getting drunk at social events, school work, social events, etc., and misbehaving. But, again, sending the wrong message, being a poor role model. All right. So this is where we break into a little bit more of, I guess, of exactly where alcohol can hit in your life and where your relationship with alcohol is at. So just want everyone to come off chat if you're willing to, it's not mandatory, but if you're willing to engage, and just talk about first rules. Does, who sets themselves rules when they go out drinking? Like, right, I'm going to only have 6 tonight, or I'm going to drive so that I don't drink past a point, or I'm going to have 2 orders between every, or do you just go out freely and there are no rules and you stick to whatever you say you're going to do? And is it, where's your relationship with in the rules sort of area? Does anyone want to have a crack?
I think it depends on the situation, really. Very much situational. Am I driving? Am I out with a certain set of friends where maybe getting too many drinks in might be a little bit too much? Or so it's very circumstantial for myself.
Yeah, and it will be. And I think, certainly some people that are looking to improve their relationship start to set some more rules. But I guess the only thing I want to leave everyone with, if you're setting a lot of rules and constantly breaking them, that's the first indication that you're probably sitting in that mid-grey area drinking area, and it's something that you want to do. Like, people that don't have a problem with alcohol tend to not set too many plans because they don't break their plans. They don't need to put all these, I guess, barriers in place, like, right, I don't want to go out with that person because I'll get sloshed because, I just can't control my alcohol when I go with that person, or I'm going to catch an Uber because if I drink, I'll drive, or, they just don't think of that. So if you are setting a lot of rules, that's probably just one indication. And if you tick a few of these boxes I go down through, it probably just indicates that you might be having a need to have a look at some of the issues with a relationship. Who has the day after they've drunk, any self-talk in the negative space? Again, if you're happy to share.
Every time. This is Michael. Yeah, every time.
Every day, did you say?
No, every time. So next day, every hangover always comes with the chat of, what did you do that for? Yeah.
Yeah. And I can certainly resonate with that. And alcohol was so much fun for me until it wasn't, if that makes sense. And I think I told you my story at the start. I had a lot of fun when I was a kid on it. It was a coping mechanism, and then I despised it. And the self-talk that I had started for some people. It'll start the next day, and you get down. And there's reasons why that happens, and I'll talk about that in a few later slides. But yeah, if you've got a point where you've got that self-negative talk and you shame the next day, etc., that's definitely indicating that you're in that space of that grey area drinking. And I certainly would recommend seeking some assistance and some people to talk about that. We talked about relationships and how that can impact it, but it's not just your family. It can be your work relationships, your mates. A lot of people say things and do things when they drink to excess and upset people. And yeah, I've seen a lot of relationships broken over alcohol. So that is certainly a risk that you need to be aware of. And, that impact on physical and mental health, that's different for everyone. But I will go into it in a few more slides down the road, just exactly some of the main key points of, proven fact of where alcohol hits you physically and mentally, and the science, some of the science behind that, which some people wouldn't be. Again, with that negative self-talk, does everyone frequently regret things once they've sort of sobered up the next morning and gone, geez, I shouldn't have done that, what did I do? Those type feelings or thoughts?
Yeah, sometimes.
And we talked about the shame and the self-pity. I think mood swings is a big one. If you're noticing that you the little things in life are really getting to you, and you're having these blow-ups and you can't really explain them, but we'll certainly talk about why that might be happening. But alcohol is a big causer of that. A lot of people aren't aware because they get this initial sort of rush of dopamine when they have an alcohol drink or beer, whatever their wine or whatever their flavor is, their favorite flavor is, and you get this hit of dopamine, which is that, oh great, that feels, you can even get a bit of an energy kick out of it for some people. But yeah, it dissipates after a while. Then you need to keep topping up, and I guess that's why psychologically our brain wants more, because it wants more of that dopamine hit, and you get drunk. But yeah, we'll talk about the lag effects of what that does to your mood at the end of the night once you start to sober off, and especially what it does on day 1, 2, and 3 when you're not drinking or sobering up, and your mood is heavily impacted, which is sort of tails nicely into a lot of people are suffering from anxiety and depression, and they go to the doctor and they're prescribed antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication. And I'm not saying that they don't need those in some instances, but a lot of the times it's people that aren't aware that alcohol is causing those issues of anxiety and depression to escalate. And if they just gave up alcohol potentially, or certainly moderated to a point, they would be in a lot better space there. And I've talked about in my story, but again, so any of these, some people might only tick 1 or 2 of these boxes. They might not tick any, but if you're ticking 3, 4, 5, it's definitely an indication that you probably have a problematic relationship with alcohol. You might be sitting in that grey area, between the sort of 3 and 7, and it's a mild disorder. If you're ticking sort of 3 or 4, and I'm not saying major, but you're certainly something that will give you, I guess, something to talk about and seek some assistance on if you are ticking a few of those boxes. All right, I'm hoping that you guys can really engage with me. I want to give you a bit of pros and cons of alcohol, but I'll go through the some of the cons, and then we can workshop, because there are some good things that some people come up with, and I'm certainly not to say that alcohol, there's no fun to be had. It's all downhill. There's nothing good about it. But I always love to see what people think or believe, that what it does for us and what joy they get out of it, etc., versus, I guess, the cons. So obviously there's a lot of calories that people aren't necessarily aware of in alcohol. Weight gain is certainly one of the negative impacts of alcohol. Alcohol in most instances and most flavors or most varieties of alcohol is far denser than sugar and in calories, and because of what it does to our system, it's so harder to get rid of and process, unlike some other things like sugar. But anyway, it's not very good for our weight. Skin disorders, a lot of people suffer from skin disorders and they don't know why. They can get creams and medication, again, going to the doctor, getting medication for something that they don't necessarily need medication for if they just gave up alcohol. Alcohol does some weird and terrible things to our system, and obviously when our liver and kidneys aren't functioning correctly, our immune system starts to break down and our skin shows our health very quickly. So that's one sign to look after. A definite negative for me was the hangovers, but especially, I guess, the long hangovers. When people start to develop a mild disorder, the hangovers aren't just the next day. It's a mental hangover that can last up to 3-4 days, or until they just drink again. You drink again, the pain goes away for 5 seconds, but the mental hangover of that self-pity and all that other things we're talking about, that can last for 3 to 4 days. And it's that merry-go-round of those type, I'll call them behaviours or mindset, is damaging. Time, a lot of people don't actually realise it, but if you sort of map out how much time you spend doing alcohol-related activities or just drinking, I used to spend Friday nights sitting at the bar with a mate or two, and they weren't even great mates, they were just people that binge drink, so they allowed me to do what I wanted to do and feel normal about it. If you remove the alcohol of it, the conversation would have been pretty quick, I think. But the amount of time that I wasted drinking alcohol when I know that I could have been spending it with loved ones or doing things that are meaningful or really positive, it was, mind-boggling. And I do recommend, if anyone is thinking about moderating or taking a sober path, there's some great apps out there. If you put like sober app in Apple or Samsung phones, numerous options will come up, but they track the time that you save, and you can transfer into self-improvement or other things. The money, the weight loss, for example, money in the first year of that 12 months that I gave up drinking, I tracked $20,000 worth of saving. Now, I didn't spend that all on alcohol, but what I did is I measured $500 a week on alcohol or alcohol-related expenses. Ubers. I used to smoke when I drink, so pack of a cigarette every time I drank. All the alcohol, didn't mind a punt on the horses or dogs or anything to keep me drinking and occupied while I was drinking. So some great apps to track some of these sort of things. Injuries for some people, I was lucky enough never to get seriously injured while I was alcohol, but lucky and only lucky, not through good management. It was just luck. Falls, I should have cracked my head open a few times, but I can give you some stats around this and the impact that injuries have on WA alone, but Australia globally. If everyone didn't drink in Western Australia, and I'm not saying that's ever going to happen, I'm not saying even recommending it should, but all the ramping and all the hospital health-related issues that we currently face, the waiting times, gone, finished, solved instantly, because unfortunately, alcohol is a mass burden on our health industry. So hospitals and GPs and the amount of, health professionals that deal with alcohol-related injuries or alcohol illnesses, it is massive. It really is. The hospitalizations in West Australia alone, in a hospital is enormous. On a Friday night, North Perth, an emergency ward, 50% of people are coming in for alcohol-related injuries and taking up valuable space. And I'm not saying they don't deserve care, but people that have, got some things that have happened through other things other than alcohol, really, they're waiting and struggling to get the care they need, because there's a lot of people out there that have had accidents, car accidents, drink driving, fighting, and all the different things that come with that. I talked about the expense. It's a very expensive exercise, and the bad news is it will never get cheaper. Government and big alcohol make billions and trillions of money out of alcohol, and they certainly aren't going to stop putting the price up. Every time the government puts tax up, obviously big alcohol or the big alcohol companies want to put the alcohol up too, so their margins aren't reduced. And we talked about, I guess, some of the mental health and physical health impacts as being a negative. Anxiety is what I like to call, and a lot of coaches call that that feeling that day after, but that can last. Like I said, people can get anxiety for 3-4 days after drinking. They just feel terrible. It increases their anxiety, and overall well-being drops dramatically. And we talked about relationships. So before I go on to myths and facts of alcohol, does anyone want to share, I guess, some of the pros of alcohol, what they believe, are in the positive space?
So social lubricant, it gets people together because in social atmospheres.
Yeah, 100%. It definitely does, and it can break down some of that original social anxiety. Like I did it a lot. I'm always, people thought I was extroverted because I was always out drinking, and it made me loud and what I thought was funny is probably boisterous and obnoxious. But it does. A couple of drinks when you arrive to an event, it certainly softens the mood up and gets a bit of courage up and going to talk to different people, those sort of things. That's why I guess people end up on the dance floor, which they normally wouldn't if they were sober, potentially. So yeah, definitely that. Anything else?
Well, I also go with taste. Like wine does taste good.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not going to disagree with that. There are some alcoholic drinks that taste good, and I think big alcohol, I call it big alcohol. Like they're the cartel. They're the people that sell alcohol in mass. Certainly spend billions of dollars in research to make alcohol taste palatable, because in its raw form it tastes like what we put in our car, because it is what we put in our car, which is a great segue into the next point. So I want to talk about some myths and facts of alcohol. So a lot of people associate alcohol separate from drugs. It's funny, I've worked in the mines for about 23 years. Even the police force separate it, the government separates it, the health care system separate it. Alcohol is a drug. It is one of the deadliest drugs in the world. It has a global death rate of 3 million people per year and growing. And, when we talk about COVID being a pandemic, alcohol certainly killed over the years far more people than COVID, and it will continue to. But no one really likes to talk about alcohol very much. We talk about cigarettes and the deaths associated with that, but not alcohol. But I do want to make it very clear that alcohol is a drug. It's a highly addictive drug, and the actual harm score that it gets is more than any other drug. But the addiction scale, it's second to heroin. So there is no other drug other than heroin on the market that is more addictive than alcohol. And I would love for, like, the mines, for example, it's just bundled in. If you're going for a drug test, that includes alcohol. Alcohol is a drug. So whether it's marijuana, speed, ecstasy, you're getting drug tested, not drugs and alcohol. I don't know. I think the connotation or separating it makes people feel better about it. And certainly the government and big alcohol have marketed it that way, that it's alcohol, not drugs, because they want people to feel good about it, because alcohol's marketed as the absolute elixir of life. You're born with it at a christening, or born into this world with it, and you leave the world at a funeral with it, and everything that we do in between. If you notice how centric alcohol is, it is everywhere. I talk about COVID being a weird time and frame, but have a look. We shut down elective surgery. Women couldn't go and get their hair done, or men for that matter. Beauticians were shut down, etc. But you could get Jimmy Brings to drop alcohol or six-pack to your door, or your local bottle shop was allowed to run right throughout COVID, but everything else had to shut. So you can see, I guess, how centric alcohol is to everyone's lives and society's lives. Who believes alcohol helps you sleep? Anyone want to comment on that?
I'm afraid I've never believed that one.
You don't believe?
Never believed that one.
Well, I'm glad. Well, alcohol does actually help you fall asleep, but it certainly doesn't help you sleep. So I won't go heaps into this. There's some great literature and study done on professionals. And Andrew Huberman on the Huberman podcast does a great podcast on the effects of alcohol on health, and goes into sleep a lot. He's got some specialists on that have also talked about the impacts of alcohol that have on your sleep. But alcohol, even in the moderate levels, has a detrimental effect on your sleep. And most people that drink 3 to 4 days a week, or let's say every day a week, I'm not talking about alcoholics, and just say you might have 2 or 3 every night, or 2 or 3 every second night, your sleep, you might think it's okay, but you don't know any different, because if you don't give your body enough chance to get alcohol free and toxin free, that's going to take 7 to 9 days, depending on size and a few other factors. But you won't know whatever that could look. So a lot of people that sort of wait 3 days, if they're quitting or thinking that they're going to get better sleep, they don't see it, so they just start drinking again and automatically start to fall asleep easier. But yeah, the quality of sleep, it damages your REM sleep. It destroys your body's ability to repair and create new cells. And that's not only why when we drink the toxin, we get hit with multiple fronts, because we've got a poison that our body's got to deal with. It affects our sleep, breaks down other things, yeah. So if anyone ever tells you alcohol helps from sleep, they're full of shit. And has anyone heard the word ethanol or alcohol, or the associated ethanol with alcohol? Because I think a lot of people think that alcohol is again, it's brewed in these nice breweries, but in a raw form, what actually gets you drunk, and the drug that they put in beer, wine, and everything else is not much different, and I'm very serious about that, than what goes in our cars. And when you actually, alcohol's a name, the actual sort of science behind, or scientific name that's given to alcohol, is ethanol. We talked about being a very addictive drug. I wanted to touch on this: no amount of alcohol is safe. So this is an absolute fact. World Health Organization recently in 22 came out and revised. Previously in Australia, we were aligned with those where the doctors recommended no more than 4 standard drinks for a male in a sitting, no more than 2 for a female in a sitting, and not to exceed any more than 10 standard drinks or so a week. They were saying, if you wanted to stay healthy. Well, that has completely been wiped out in most places of the world, and the World Health Organization now has come out and said that there is no safe recommended amount of alcohol. And I guess the facts behind that is whether you're drinking a little bit or a lot, as soon as you start drinking, you're impacting your health in some way, shape, or form. It might not be greatly, and yes, I think some people could drink to a degree and not have any major health impact. But if you're drinking, let's say for a female, if you're drinking 2 standard drinks per night a week, your risks for breast cancer, for example, can be increased just by drinking 2 drinks a night, up to 26%. And obviously, as you start to drink more, that risk is as high. So there's now, 1 in every 4 cases of breast cancer is directly linked to alcohol. And males don't escape some of these risk factors either. Bowel cancer, liver and kidney, etc. Those things. Esophagus, which is very common in heavy drinkers, cancers. You're increasing your risks. I talked about the global death rate. A lot of people wouldn't have been aware of that. You can certainly Google it and test it out, but it has a global death rate of over 3 million people, and that's through like all those different things I was talking about: accidents, injury, and most of it comes from poor health. Anyone believe alcohol relieves stress?
It might in the moment, but that's just the feeling that it gives you for that point in time, I guess, for the dopamine hits and whatnot.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Spot on. So yes, it can have an immediate, I think alcohol, when you first drink it, releases a bit of serotonin, you get some dopamine, can have a bit of a calming effect, like that. Oh God, that was good. That first beer or first sip of wine after a hard day, but it wears off, and then our body definitely kicks into, I guess, more of a stress response, and our body produces. If you drink, for example, regularly versus a non-drinker, your baseline cortisol stress hormone will be a lot higher because alcohol just has that natural effect. It makes our body produce more cortisol as a stress response. So your resilience to stress will be a lot less as a drinker compared to a non-drinker. And I talked about cancers, but for anyone that's not aware, alcohol has a direct link to 7 types of cancer. I'm not saying everyone that drinks gets cancer, but certainly you're at higher risk for developing a cancer because of what alcohol does to our body. So I won't go into the absolute science of that. We'll talk about it probably a little bit in it later, but yeah, there's definitely some effects that it has. It changes our cells. It stops producing it stops our body producing a lot of the immune system and what our body uses as a defense when it does have bacteria or toxins or different things in our body that can be cancer causing. And when it can't fight that correctly because it's fighting alcohol, obviously then tumors and different things like that have a better chance of surviving and growing. Has anyone heard the word neurotransmitters or chemical messages? And that's like what I'm talking about: dopamine, cortisol, GABA, serotonin. It's the neurotransmitters in our body have the job of, I guess, controlling our mood, and they send signals from our, they get, most of it gets made in our gut, and that controls our rational thinking. It can control our, like I said, our mood and how we're feeling, and it has a lot to do with our overall well-being. And that's why alcohol used sort of mildly or into the disorder range can certainly have an impact on our mental health. And a lot of people don't know that. They might think, okay, well, I've got mental health, or you've actually got a drinking disorder. Remove the drinking disorder, and not all, I'm not saying in all instances, but most of your symptoms around the mental health will disappear. And now, obviously, if they don't, then you might have a more serious issue that you would seek professional help from, obviously. But a lot of time people will just think, geez, I'm down, I've got the blues, my mental health's poor, but it's because of sometimes the alcohol, what it's doing to our body physically, and then firstly physically, and then secondly mentally. Has anyone heard of that effect that alcohol can have?
Yeah, I have heard a little
of that.
Well, I'll touch a little bit, mate, on some of the reasoning behind it. So dopamine, we get that dopamine rush when we have a beer. It's like adrenaline when you exercise. You come out, you're pumped. Finish a hard day's work, grab a beer or a wine or whatever your choice of drink is, and it's like, oh, I needed that. And it does give you that initial rush. And it's like, also some people, it's a bit of a go button. It does give you a burst of energy, dopamine. But like I said, it has a lag effect. It doesn't last. Then people want to top up and get that feeling again, so they have another drink and another drink. Because does anyone? I'd be interested if anyone wants to come off mute and just give me a snapshot, because I certainly did. I could go all night as long as I carried on drinking. But if I drank 5-6 drinks and stopped, and like I was going to go out to dinner with the family afterwards, I'd be half asleep within a second. I needed to keep drinking, otherwise crash and burn. Like if you have a couple of beers at a lunch or something like that, and you go home, you just want to go to bed.
Yeah, I'm the exact same.
Yeah, so that's because the body, if you don't keep topping up, it starts to go into repair mode, so it's starting to shut things down and wants to, so it can get rid of the toxin. But anyway, we'll talk about that more. Serotonin and the gut, I call it the handbrake. So serotonin's our mood controller. It controls a lot of the way we feel and our well-being. And the reason why I talk about this and the effect on our mental health. So dopamine and serotonin can be introduced initially with a rush of alcohol. Your first drink, you'll get less of that rush. Your second, even less of the third. So then people build this tolerance, and they need to drink more alcohol to keep getting back to that initial rush, similar to other drugs like cocaine or other drugs. That initial hit that people got and the buzz that they got from it, they build a tolerance, and then they've got to use more and more and more. But what happens is alcohol gives us this initial rush, but then because alcohol is effectively in the old days, and still to a degree now, sometimes it's used as a disinfectant. It kills bacteria. These things are made into a lot of serotonin and dopamine start from being made physically in our stomachs or our guts, and you need good gut health to maintain these neurotransmitters, where not all of them, but a lot of them get made. Alcohol kills them, or at least stops the body being able to function to make them, and you get depletion of them. And that's why you get that lag effect of anxiety the next day, because your body hasn't made enough of these overnight. It hasn't repaired, because what it's actually doing is parking all that effort aside and using all of its effort to get rid of the poison that you've put into your body. So, your liver and all the other things, rather than doing a lot of the positive work that they do in our sleep and other periods of the day, they're fighting this bushfire, if you like, if that makes sense. GABA is also, an extreme. A lot of people don't know about it a lot, but it's another one of these neurotransmitters that really keep us happy, keep us functioning well, and alcohol has a dramatic effect on GABA, and then that is why a lot of people feel that, when GABA sources are depleted or low because of alcohol consumption, and especially continuous alcohol consumption, you're going to get that anxiety kicking in. And cortisol just works in reverse. Cortisol is probably the only neurotransmitter or stress hormone that doesn't deplete. The more you drink, your baseline of cortisol increases, and that's why a lot of people are on edge when they're off alcohol the next day, and only takes one wrong conversation or someone to say the wrong thing, and it sets them off. So anyone in that mild range of grey area drinking can, if they've got a problematic relationship with alcohol and consuming more than 12 standard drinks, certainly would, they might not realise it, but if they stopped alcohol, they would, because they would see that they do actually have a lot of poor feeling, a lot of the self-talk, their energy levels, anxiety, sometimes mild cases, depression, etc., is because their depletion of neurotransmitters because of the alcohol. Their body is just not doing what it the amazing things that it's built to do because of that. And lastly, I did touch on sleep, but REM sleep, that real important sleep where we actually get deep repair, and our body gets rid of toxins and other things. Each drink we have, that REM sleep is reduced, and obviously to a point where you can drink enough alcohol or go out on a night and binge drink, you get 0 REM sleep. So you can actually, even if you went to bed, you're hungover, you got up after 12 hours of lying in bed, the quality of sleep and the actual benefit of that sleep's almost, non-existent. And that's why people wake up feeling like a train wreck, even though they've had 8 hours sleep. I did talk about it a lot in my story, but I just really wanted to highlight this. So there's no words other than what's on the page. If life gives you lemons, don't add gin. This is just, I guess, a helpful tip for me. When we have trauma, loss, or grief in our lives, it's generally, and big alcohol has done a great job at marketing this. Grab a drink, you'll feel better. Go and, commiserate with some friends, etc. In my experience, alcohol never makes grief, loss, or trauma long term, any easier. It prolongs the period of grief, loss, and trauma, and it makes, in most cases, unless you went out and had a couple of drinks. I'm not saying that's not an issue, but if you're, like for me, when I lost my son, I went on 6 months bender, and yes, I lost my son. It was the most tragic event in my life, but then I nearly lost my family. I could have got divorced out of it, and I could have ended up dead myself. So, that's the extreme case. But yeah, I guess my tip, and there's a few of them in this presentation, is certainly you need to be at your strongest, especially when you need to be around supporting your family, your loved ones, your best mate, or whoever else is going through the trauma, the grief, or the loss, so that your cup's full because your health, your sleep, your movement, and all the different things that keep your mental health and your physical health intact is as full as you can get it, so you can support yourself to support others through these periods. As soon as you start drinking, you're obviously going to empty your cup, and your energy levels, your health and well-being, physically and mentally, are not going to be at the point where you're going to be able to get through this yourself and help others, if that makes any sense. Positive self-talk, and social engagement. A lot of people have difficulties. I coach a lot of people. They say to me, "Oh, Sean, how am I going to go out?" And I want to talk about that. Please come offline now and sort of, if you're thinking, of moderating or even leading down that sober curious path, do you see this as a major stepping stone or a hurdle? Before I kick off and talk a bit about this, I'm just interested to see if anyone sort of has, for a lot of people that are thinking about being sober curious, for me, that this is one of the first roadblocks they say is a fear.
Yeah, Sean, this is the one that I always think about, like whenever I did 75 hard beginning of the year.
Yeah.
75 days, stick to a real program and stuff, but I did kind of pull myself away from some of the social aspects. I knew that alcohol was going to be around because I knew that I had this goal and I was working towards it. So it's definitely one of the things that I do constantly think about.
Yeah. Look, it is difficult because, like I've said sort of throughout the presentation, alcohol is so centric to our lives. So, again, born into the world with it, christened with it, every birthday, even, it's funny, sit back at some child's parties and actually see what the adults are doing. It's a 3-year-old birthday, for Christ's sake, and there's eskies out in the park or eskies out in the backyard or whatever. No one's looking after the kids. Okay, the kids are having a bit of fun and looking after themselves, but what are we there for? What is the purpose? Is it being mindful and present with your kids and enjoying and experiencing some of their birthdays? A lot of parents, and I'm certainly guilty of that, some of my kids' birthdays I can't even remember. So I just think, be aware of, you don't always have to drink, and it's okay now. Society is getting more and more accepting of it, and if they're not, potentially you've got the wrong relationships if they're not supportive. But don't feel obligated just because you're going to a sporting event, you're going out to a work lunch, or you're going out to whatever it is, that you have to drink alcohol. I think we've got to get to the point now where people accept people either wanting to moderate or abstain, and that should be socially acceptable. Unfortunately, take cigarettes, for example. I've quit smoking. Please don't offer me a cigarette. Everyone in the group goes, fantastic, mate. Good on you. Great to hear. Amazing. When you say, oh, look, I'm thinking of cutting back drinking tonight and I'm not going to have a drink tonight, they go, come on, just one, get into it. What's the matter with you? Everyone's not so accepting of that. Does anyone find that pressure?
Yeah, that is part of it. Yeah.
So I think always having a plan. In the early stages when I was moderating and then further giving up, I used to just say that I'm on a health kick at the moment. I'm doing some training, so I'm not drinking for a period of time. I did dry Julys and a few things like the hard 75 or things like you're talking. So it's easy to use those in the initial period, and you can bank them up a little bit. So like if you're trying to get through 3 months worth of alcohol or 30 days, then you can plan it with those events. So then it is more, I guess, accepted in society. But I think always talk positively, and I can't talk strongly enough about this. So when you are saying, oh no, I can't drink, no, I won't be able to drink tonight, I've got a problem with it or anything, I've never openly in public, like in that situation, said no, I can't drink, because if I do, I'll ruin my life. It's now, if people ask me, oh, do you want to drink? No, thank you. Oh, don't you drink? No, I chose to give up alcohol, a long time ago. And if they ask why, it's just, oh, look, I choose, because that's my choice. I can actually start drinking again, whether I would be able to moderate or not. That's another story. But I choose not to drink because the life that I guess a sober life gives me, now that I know it, is just so good. I don't have a reason to drink. And certainly wouldn't let anyone pressure me into drinking, because what I did find though, when I was giving up drinking, and that's why I talk about this social engagement, sometimes you actually, you have friends in life, some are lifelong friends, and then some are just boosters on the side of your rocket, and your rocket's going up higher than maybe that they can go, and they drop off. And they're not bad people, and this doesn't happen in all instances, but I found my true friends supported what I was doing, and they're still there today. And I go to the pub even with them now, because they don't pressure me to have alcohol, and they don't. I'm happy to be there and have an alcohol-free beer with them, or when I come around, they even now buy them. First few barbecues, I'd always have to bring my own because they wouldn't include me. But I think back to society is getting a lot more accepted in this, but I think talking about it in a positive way, never look at it as, I think in the early days, and certainly even a couple of years ago, a lot of people sort of almost shameful to say they're not going to drink, or because people assume I was never an alcoholic. I had a definite drinking disorder, but I was never an alcoholic. And again, some people deem themselves alcoholic, and I don't think there's an actual bracket that you can fit into because you drink this much. Again, I think it's just how it makes you feel. I probably felt like an alcoholic at times, definitely. All the symptoms of depression and self-pity, all those sort of things as I talked. But now I'm proud to be and share that, and so I think own it, but have a plan. If you are thinking of moderating, my advice is don't go out without a plan. Like I said, have something that you're working on. You can just say, you've got a statement in the back of your head. Someone asks you, oh, you're not drinking tonight? No, I'm on a fitness campaign, or I'm on medication. It's one of the easiest things to start with, because we don't always want to open up at a work event why you're not drinking to people that we don't really know. Family and friends, you might say, because they know, no, look, it's no good for me, I'm giving it up. But it's important, I think, to keep that positive talk really upfront, and continue social engagement. But if people pressure you, quite often, and I'll leave this last segment with this, that they're jealous. You've given up alcohol, or you've moderated and you've moved on, and they see that. If they admit that that's great for you, then they actually have to look at themselves, and quite often they're not prepared to do that yet. So it's easier to let you go.
Can I present you with a question on that part?
Yeah, absolutely.
So how did, when you first done it then, like normally the days or the times when I'd be going out on social events like that, I've got like an hour, maybe two of me in, and then that's me. I kind of start to pull away and probably want to leave.
Yep.
How did you find yourself being able to stay out a bit longer and not feel like a bit of a social recluse because of it?
That's a great question. So I'm nowhere near as social as I used to be, but when I am social, it's exactly who I want to be social with. So I no longer waste time sitting at pubs for 5-6 hours. I'll go for a specific event, and as long as I know that the whole event is not just people getting drunk. Some of my mates, still big drinkers, will go play golf. They'll want to go to the pub afterwards. I always go because they're great. We have a laugh. But yeah, I'm like you, 3 pints in for them, and I'm almost ready to wind up and go home. And they kick on, and I've got no issue with that. That's whatever they want to do. But that's time for me now. I just get so much more joy rather than sitting at the pub like I used to, because I literally would get home at midnight after a game of golf, or worst case 2-3 in the morning. I now just can't wait to get back to my family, my kids, or go and spend some time outside of the pub. I still very social, still do those things, but yeah, I just have a time limit. So I don't think that's a bad thing. And like I said, real supportive, true fans will have no issue with that. And the ones that drop off, you'll find out sooner or later that the relationship was built on alcohol. Once you take the binge drinking or the long nights of alcohol out of it, there is no real relationship, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, perfect, thank you.
But yeah, it's different from everyone. I just find now, yeah, definitely it's 2 hours. I'm looking for the exit, and I don't even make an excuse now. Just like, good day, good night, and you guys kick on, have a great night. All right. There's a couple more slides, but these are really, I guess, the tips. And so the biggest thing I can leave you with, if you're thinking of moderating, or you're sober curious and you're thinking about leading a sober life, a lot of people fail at this because they give up alcohol for a period of time, and they can last 70 days, 100 days. Some people have even lasted, a year or two. I even know some people that have stopped drinking because they had high-end disorders, gone to AA and different things like that, but they started 9 years later. I'm not saying AA doesn't work or anything like that, but I guess the way I was trained, and there's different methods of, coaching people to improve their relationship with alcohol is, and look, they all work in some way or another, and it's different for everyone. So I certainly research what's out there, but you can't just remove alcohol, tell someone to quit, give them a couple of tools to do that, speak to people about their problems. Some people take medication to help them get off alcohol because naltrexone, for example, in the US is proven to, remove some of that early addiction and craving, and to get them through a period, and then they wean off that. But it doesn't make sense to me. You're sort of stopping one drug by bringing in another and all those sort of things. I work with people about getting people to find their joy, removing alcohol out of their system, whether it's moderating or, if they're leading a sober life, and teaching them how to find joy. And, that includes mind, body, and spirit. And it's not everything for everyone, because some people aren't big in the spirit space. But I think definitely it's working with people as a coach to find out how they can relax their central nervous system and their body, get back into, I guess, optimum health, and find connection to different things like community, loved ones, social service, which might be, volunteering, and doing a whole range of other things that give them joy in life. And what we see, I guess, when people find joy in their life through all these different things that I'm talking about, they no longer have this empty void. And also it helps change your mindset. So when like now, and I would have never thought 2 years ago, I would have laughed, Sean, you're not going to be drinking and you'll never want to think about alcohol again. And if you actually do, you'll only think about it in a negative regard. I would have absolutely laughed till I broke a rib. But now I have all this stuff that I know what it does for me and all the wider group around me, my family especially, and my children, my wife. my working relationships, all those different things. Yeah, I've found far more than I actually need to even think about alcohol or drinking alcohol again. So relaxation's massive for some people. That's, I'm not talking, some people are into meditation, but breath work, I'm massive on breath work. There's different techniques out there called like havening, where people just rub their hands down the side of their body and close their eyes and use grounding at the same time. So you're grounded. The power of grounding to relax and calm our central nervous system is massive. Some people, walk on the barefoot on lawn and different things like that. Use that grounding technique combined with breathing in the initial stages of recovery, and that really just even I find breath work. I use it daily, and not because I'm going to get a craving or I think it's going to keep me off alcohol. It just actually helps calm me down. It helps me focus a lot of things, and it's now like through, I guess, my recovery I used it, but I've just adapted using it every single day. Got my family and my wife, I'm trying to get onto it, but all my kids are onto it, and I love it. Nutrition, I can't emphasize how important that is, and I won't go into this because we don't have enough time, but getting baseline nutrition, learning how to eat so that our body repairs, stops craving. For example, if you're pumping high carb sugar drinks into your system on a daily basis through alcohol and you remove that, your body's going to crave those sort of things. So when like 5 o'clock comes and it's beer o'clock, what are you putting in your body to stop that? And there's absolute tools through nutrition that can stop those cravings and help you get your health and baseline in so that those neurotransmitters and all those different things are working at their optimum or best, so that your anxiety levels are controlled, your depression is gone, or it's controlled, and all the happy joy stuff comes back in your life, so that you don't need this crutch of alcohol necessarily. And again, though, I do emphasize, a lot of people, obviously, they can drink 1 or 2 drinks or whatever it may be. It doesn't have an issue for them. So I'm not saying just because you drink you have an issue, but there's certainly a lot of people that do drink have these issues. Emotions, so obviously, understanding, and I've got a slide after this that'll put this in a bit more perspective, really measuring where your emotions are at, finding out how you're feeling emotionally is so important to the steps of becoming sober or moderating. If you don't get your emotions in check and you can't control your mood and those type of things in your way you think, it's very difficult to then stay sober or stay in a moderated state. I'm sure you've heard it before, but our frontal lobe or frontal cortex, where all of our rational decisions get made in our brain, front of our brain. So when we think about doing something triggers and goes, you better not do that because the last time, or we saw Freddie do that and they got hurt, or the rational thinking, when that does control a lot of our emotions, because some of our rational thinking, if we don't think rationally, then things happen, then it causes our emotions to be affected. But alcohol, the reason why, obviously, when you have a big night, after about 5 or 6 standard drinks of alcohol, your frontal cortex actually just switches off for the night and pulls the roller shutters down and says, you don't need me anymore because you've saturated me in alcohol and I can't work. So that's why people start dancing on tables or running around nude or getting in fights that they would never, ever think about or plan to when they're in a sober state. Service, a lot of people ask me questions about service. The service, finding joy, and this is not for everyone. I list some of these options, I guess, because service can be, in the form of voluntary or helping out someone, can be a family member, but just contributing to community and those different things. A lot of people find joy in. And obviously relationships I've talked about throughout this. I can't emphasize great, loving relationships where you nourish everything that you need as a person, your physical and mental benefits from that are like, it's unexplainable when you're in that zone. And exercise and movement, and that doesn't necessarily mean running marathons. It can be simple brisk walks or holding your partner's hand and going for a walk together and talking about different things, improving your relationship, rather than spending that time in bed hungover and because you don't want to face the wife or the husband or loved ones, and leisure, finding out what's fun in your life again, because yeah, for a lot of people, alcohol stops becoming fun, and like I explained, you know, you get to a point sometimes where you actually despise it. So it's really important to find that leisure. And spirit, it's not necessarily religion, can be a whole range of things, but you know, thinking of something high good, a high value, or a belief, I should say, belief system. A lot of people use yoga and all that because it is sort of in that spiritual sort of area, and it does actually you know, unlock a few things that people find of joy in that area. This, you know, I'll share my email address with anyone, but I'll be happy to share this as a free tool. So, you know, I definitely recommend anyone on this and regularly to test where you are in life. So relaxation, relationships, career, I won't go through all of them, service, but a lot of things I talked about, leisure, and measure yourself where you're currently at, where you think you should be at. And like when I was drinking and, you know, I'd lost my son, rock bottom, most of my real key petals on this flower, if you like, the life flower or wellness wheel, whatever you want to call it, were very low. And for me, you know, my real key, you know, relationships, exercise, emotion, they were all very, very low. Nutrition was terrible. I ate healthy when I wasn't drinking, but when I was hungover and drinking, you know, obviously I just wasn't giving myself a fair chance. I'm actually going to come off camera now, and we're going to have a open chat. Feel free to come off camera if you want to, or stay there. But how did that resonate with you guys? And I'd love to workshop any questions or anything that you guys may have.
No, it was good. Yeah, it's kind of like you can't. The thing came along at the right time because I've got new priorities in life, and it's trying to then juggle it without completely removing myself from situations, I guess. Which is why I asked the question about the social thing, because I felt like many times I was going out there and not drinking, or you have 2 drinks and then everyone's cracking on. I lost all my. I started to play all my social points. I could stick about for a little bit longer, but then I would pull away and leave.
Yeah, and you tend to do that. So look, I'm not certainly going to say that you'd lose all your relationships, but they change. And Michael, my advice to you is, and that's why that wheel, you find out what brings joy. So you start resonating and forming new relationships. What I found is, yeah, I've formed so many new relationships. Like I would have never thought I'm doing this type of work 2 years ago, but now you know, I tend to resonate or attract to the same similar-minded people around health, wellness, and some of the relationships I've formed now. So I do a lot of coffees and a lot of lunches, and typically do a lot of socialising after a swim or different things like that. I just don't go to the pub and waste a whole heap of time damaging my health and my relationships and my emotion and all the other things that I was doing along the way.
And you said you went from like in moderation to complete sobriety. Is that like, was that a phase out, or was it a? Okay,
oh, it was a long phase. it was a long phase and a lot of challenges. And look, there's no rule of thumb or perfect recipe. It's different for everyone. A lot of people that come to me for coaching want to moderate at the start because they just don't want to ever face the fact that you can't drink, and that's a lot of because of the way society programs everything in what I've talked about tonight. You know, just the pressure on, you know, geez, I couldn't imagine myself not drinking. How do you socialize? How do you sleep? Or how do you have fun? But yeah, I moderated. But there's one thing, I moderated for years, and it was a complete failure. And it is for most. There's only about 10% of people that can actually learn to moderate long-term successfully. The vast majority of people can moderate for a period of time. And then because, you know, like me, programming your body and your, I guess, neuro pathways for a long period of time, 30 years of drinking in one way. As soon as you take alcohol and try and moderate, it just wants to go back to that normal behaviour, if that makes sense. So I'll leave you with it's a true statement. It is far easier to give up alcohol if you have a problematic relationship with it than try and moderate, because there's one rule. Yes, you've got to do things and you've got to do all the things I've said. There's a fair bit of work involved in putting in things when you take the alcohol out, but there's one rule: don't drink. When you moderate, you're constantly living by a set of rules, and very, very, very hard to keep them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense, because I guess when, again, 75 hard, 100 days sober thing, all those kind of ones, it was pretty simple in that respect, and it was an easy response. I do kind of pull away from more of the social aspects of it. I'm a bit more of an introvert in that respect, but yeah, it makes complete sense.
Yeah, I think moderating. You have a look at some of the rules. Some people said don't drink any more than 2. Come home by 9. Drive so that you only drink a couple. Don't 2 waters between this or this rule, that rule, that rule. Don't be late. You'll upset the wife or you'll upset the husband. Or don't let this down. Don't do that. When I stopped drinking, all my goal was don't drink. Do whatever you need to do, but don't drink. That's easy. Well, it's not. Don't take that the wrong way. It's not easy not to become sober, but it's so much easier than moderating.
Okay. No, thank you.
Is there any other questions I can answer? Anything that I may have missed that you want covered? And if you're after any further information, if anyone's got a pen, certainly email me with some questions. I do offer a Right Fit free call obligation too. So on my website, I'm more than happy to have a sort of one-on-one if you've got specifics that you want to talk about or ask questions on. I'm not the right fit for everyone, and the reason why I call it a right fit call is because I want me to be the right fit for you, not you the right fit for me. The only thing that I need to, I guess, when I work with people is just make sure that they're in my lane of profession. So we talked about that grey area. If they're in the grey area, I'm more than happy to work with those type people. But if they're dependent, then they need more professionalised help, and that could include, in the first instance, go and seeing their GP, but then they might be referred to a rehab centre and have to have medical, be monitored from a medical sort of basis and all those different things. Because dependent drinkers. In that high bracket red area, certainly that's high risk, and I don't work in that space. But if anyone does want any further information, you can reach me at Sean Palmer at revivesobrietycoaching.com, and my website is Revive Sobriety Coaching. So if you want to have a look on my website, you can certainly book in through there. The calendar's there. You can pick a time and an obligation-free call. And if you wanted to work on anything. A lot of people don't want to share individual things too much on a chat like this, but more than happy to have a chat with anyone if you've got a specific problem that you think I may be able to help with, or want to have a chat. Like I said, it's obligation free, and more than happy to do that. Just interested. Difficult for a Wednesday night to hold these. We had about 55 people booked, but I'm glad this is well worth it, even if one person turned up for me. What you guys thought of it, and sort of, was it helpful? I try and make them thought-provoking, so I guess that you leave aware with some choices that may proceed change. That was my aim. Have I ticked any of those boxes?
For me, I guess again, covering the social aspect of it, like for me, you kind of know, like, without someone to spell out to me, like the kind of the health hazards and all that kind of stuff, but it is the kind of the social aspect of it is a real takeaway point for me. So that part really kind of resonated, and I guess, not speak for anyone else in here, but for speaking to other people within my social group and stuff, I guess that's probably something that kind of sticks with them as well. They always keep on thinking about health goals and stuff, but also not want to pull away from that social aspect. So
yeah, that social aspect is definitely, like I said, that's why I put that slide in after a few workshops I've done, because it's most people, and especially people I coach sort of on a one-on-one basis, it's one of the first things that they want to work on is, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, how do I get through this? Because, the way I see it now, I'm not going to have a social life, and I'm going to be boring, and I'll be sitting at home every night. And
and knowing and having the knowledge again, like that it's not healthy, but you're still willing to put that at jeopardy because of it shows how strong that social part is, and that is basically the main breaker for people.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's why, you've definitely got to find your joy. So when you look at relationships and you do different things, you find I am really busy. I'm quite social, but I'm just not a pub social person anymore. I used to be, Friday night, 5 o'clock, beer in hand, right through till early hours of the morning most Fridays. Saturday was hungover, Sunday golf, and beers during golf, after golf, all day, sometimes all night, and then Thursday footy training, beers afterwards. I was very pub social, beer social, but now I go to footy training. I still socialise with them. I still train, although I don't play anymore. I just use it for fitness. But great socialisation. The guys even brought, I've got other people onto it because there's about half a dozen people now that drink the zero options, and even golf club has got zero options, and I'm included. I sit down and have, not always, but if I sit down and have a game of golf with friends, sit down, have a lunch, they have beers, I have a beer with them, but it's just alcohol free. So I definitely, you'll find which relationships should continue, but once you start on a different path, it becomes clear pretty quickly which relationships shouldn't, because you just no longer value wasted time. And I'm not saying wasted on people, but you're moving in a different direction, and that's why sometimes I describe them as boosters. You needed them at some point in your life, but you're no longer, and they try to fall away, and then you get other people that sort of boost you on to the next level, and you find you work new relationships with people that you're more in line with.
But it kind of covered everything, and it was good the way that it covered the health part, and then moving into the social part, and then that was really good, man.
Yeah, the health impact. Yeah, you're right. A lot of it is general knowledge, but you'll be surprised how many people actually don't know how deeply moderate and high drinking disorders affect people's health and well-being. Like it is, I didn't get a chance to talk some of the stats, but some of the stats in WA, if you Google, it's called WA's Hidden Crisis. On Google, do a Google search, and it's got a whole written report. May 22 it was published, and harm from alcohol. It's alarming what effects alcohol has on WA society, and it's the same globally. But alcohol in WA is one of the worst rates in the world because of our culture. It's very the weather and social events, and beers everywhere. It's beer and alcohol is everywhere. It's every picnic, every social event, every breakfast. Look at the job big alcohol's done. Who would have thought bottomless brunches and champagne breakfasts, and no one actually thinks, is it healthy to be having a bottomless lunch, or is it great to have champagne with breakfast? Is it, like I've been to big footy grand final breakfasts, and people are drinking at 8 o'clock in the morning, like red wine, and lots of it. It's just so accepted. How about you, Natalie and Josh? Have you guys got any questions before I let you guys get on with your beautiful evenings? Both on mute. All right. Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure. Small, intimate group, but like I said, that's perfect. Sometimes it's better than if I had 50 people on the screen to talk to. So that's a bit more of a challenge. I hope you all did get something from it. I certainly did, and always do. It's been an absolute pleasure. And don't hesitate to reach out. Like I said, if you just Google Revive Sobriety Coaching, you'll find my website, and you can definitely contact me through there through multiple ways. You'll see my email address there, and you can book in for a right fit call if that's what you want to do. And yeah, I hope you guys got something out of this, and it gives you some choices and potentially some motivation for change if necessary.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.